7 mind games women play when they're sexually attracted to you, and how to win every one, psychology tricks. Love doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers, just to see who's paying attention. When a woman feels a strong sexual pull toward a man, she almost never spells it out directly. Instead, attraction shows up in quieter, more strategic ways through behaviors that test your awareness, confidence, and emotional strength. These are not accidents or mixed signals. They're subtle psychological moves designed to measure how grounded and perceptive you are. She might create moments of uncertainty, push your emotional buttons, or introduce a hint of competition, not to drive you away, but to see how you respond under pressure. Attraction thrives on emotional tension, and these behaviors are her way of turning up the intensity. This isn't manipulation for control. It's attraction looking for depth, challenge, and spark. Most men misread these signals. They assume she's uninterested, playing games for no reason, or slowly fading away. And without realizing it, they step back, losing momentum before anything real can begin. But once you understand what's really happening beneath the surface, everything changes. What looks like distance is often an invitation. What feels like confusion is usually curiosity. She isn't pushing you out of her world. She's seeing if you're strong enough, calm enough, and self-aware enough to step further into it. Today, we're breaking down the 7 mind games women often play when they're sexually attracted to you and exactly how to come out on top in every one of them. 1. The push-pull game. The push-pull game is one of the most misunderstood yet revealing patterns you'll ever notice when a woman feels a genuine spark. And if you learn to read it correctly, it stops feeling like chaos and starts feeling like clarity. Because what looks like mixed signals is often a quiet psychological invitation to see who you really are under pressure. One moment she's leaning in, holding eye contact a second longer than necessary, brushing your arm as if by accident, laughing with warmth that feels personal, and the next moment she cools off, answers slower, creates space, or seems absorbed in her own world. And that sudden shift can feel like emotional vertigo if you don't understand the psychology tricks behind it. Don't panic. Don't rush to explain yourself. Don't assume you did something wrong. Be calm. Be curious. That is the test. In female psychology, attraction is not only about how you look or what you say, it's about how you regulate yourself when uncertainty appears, because emotional steadiness is far more magnetic than constant availability. When she pulls back after showing interest, she is often watching silently to see whether you chase with anxiety, retreat with bitterness, or stay relaxed and grounded in your own frame, and this is where many men lose without realizing it. You must understand that the push creates anticipation, while the pull checks your balance, and together they build tension that keeps interest alive. If you flood her with messages, overanalyze her tone, or try to lock things down too fast, the tension collapses and curiosity fades. But if you stay playful, centered, and present, something subtle shifts inside her. She feels safe exploring attraction because you are not demanding certainty from her before she's ready. This is one of the most powerful psychology tricks at work, and it has nothing to do with manipulation and everything to do with emotional awareness. Be warm when warmth is offered, but don't cling. Enjoy the moment, but don't grip it. When she steps back, stay steady, keep living your life, keep your tone light, because that balance signals confidence without saying a word. In female psychology, confidence is not loud, it's calm. It's the man who doesn't need to win every moment to feel secure. It's the man who understands how to fall in love is not about chasing intensity, but about allowing rhythm. You must resist the urge to label her behavior as confusing or unfair, because once you see the pattern, it becomes an invitation rather than a threat. The push-pull dynamic keeps emotional energy moving, and movement is where attraction breathes. That's why men who remain unaffected by temporary distance often become more intriguing, not less. Don't interrogate her silence. Don't demand reassurance. Be present when she returns, as if nothing was ever at risk, because that nonchalance communicates emotional maturity in a way words never could. This is how to fall in love without losing yourself, and it's why men who understand psychology tricks don't feel controlled by them. They simply observe, respond, and stay rooted. When you master this, you stop trying to win her interest and instead become the environment where interest feels easy. Female psychology responds deeply to men who can hold connection without pressure, closeness without attachment anxiety, and distance without resentment. That is not indifference. That is balance. That is emotional intelligence in action. Be patient. Be playful. Be consistent with who you are. You must remember that attraction grows where curiosity meets safety, and the push-pull game exists to measure exactly that. Once you see it clearly, you no longer feel tested. You feel chosen, because now you know how to fall in love without forcing it, how to read female psychology without fear, and how to let psychology tricks work for you instead of against you. 2. The jealousy trigger. The jealousy trigger is one of the most subtle and revealing moments you will ever experience when attraction is present, and it often arrives disguised as something harmless, almost accidental, which is exactly why it works so well. She casually mentions another guy in conversation, not with drama, just a name dropped into the air. She compliments someone else's style or success. She laughs a little too hard at another man's joke, just enough for you to notice, but not enough to call out. That reaction you feel inside? The tightening in the chest, the sudden alertness, the urge to prove something. That is not an accident. This moment is a mirror. It reflects how you see yourself. Don't rush to react. Don't interrogate her. Don't compete out loud. Be still. Be observant. Be amused. That is the test. In moments like this, she is quietly measuring your emotional control and your sense of self-worth, because nothing reveals a man faster than how he handles perceived competition. If you get defensive, ask sharp questions, or try to subtly one-up the other guy, you communicate insecurity without saying a word, and that instantly cools attraction. But if you remain relaxed, grounded, and even lightly playful, you send a very different message. You know who you are, and you don't need external validation to feel steady. That is what separates a reactive man from a high-value man. A high-value man does not panic when attention briefly shifts. He understands that attention is fluid and confidence is internal. You must remember that the jealousy trigger is not designed to push you away. It is designed to see if you can rise above emotional noise. This is where masculine energy shows itself, not through force or control, but through calm presence and emotional restraint. Masculine energy is quiet certainty. It is the ability to stay centered when others might wobble. When she senses that you are unaffected by the illusion of competition, something powerful happens. Her respect deepens. Her curiosity grows. She begins to feel safe leaning toward you because you are not demanding reassurance at every turn. This is one of the least understood ways to attract women, because many men believe attraction grows through constant pursuit, when in reality it grows through self-possession. The jealousy trigger also heightens desire by subtly increasing perceived value. By introducing the idea that others might be interested, she creates contrast, and contrast sharpens focus. But the goal is not to make you feel small. The goal is to see if you can remain whole. Don't mistake confidence for indifference. Indifference feels cold. Confidence feels warm and unshaken. Smile. Stay engaged. Keep your tone light. You must show that you are present without being possessive, interested without being rattled. That balance is rare, and rarity is attractive. This is why men who truly attract women are not the loudest or the most aggressive. They are the ones who know their worth and act accordingly. A high-value man understands that attraction is not a contest to win, but a connection to allow. He doesn't rush to prove himself because his actions already speak. He doesn't withdraw in silence because he isn't threatened. He stays open, relaxed, and grounded. That is masculine energy at its most effective. When you respond this way, the jealousy trigger stops being a test and becomes a spark, because now she sees that you are not moved by comparison. You must understand that comparison is the enemy of intimacy, and confidence is its antidote. The sweet spot is confidence without distance, strength without stiffness, interest without neediness. This is how to attract women consistently, not through tactics alone, but through emotional maturity. Don't overthink the moment. Don't replay it later in your head. Be present. Be steady. Be yourself, fully and unapologetically. When you do this, the illusion of competition fades, and what remains is something far more compelling: a man who knows his value, holds his center, and invites attraction without forcing it. That is the kind of man women remember. That is the kind of man they choose. If this opened your eyes and gave you a new way to read attraction, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with a man who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more sharp insights into psychology and attraction. Now interact with the channel and lock this lesson into your mind by commenting the sentence below in the comments section. I don't compete for attention, I stay calm and let confidence speak. Write it. Own it. Remember it. 3. The mixed signals test. The mixed signals test is one of the most misunderstood psychological dynamics in modern attraction, yet it has existed for centuries under different names. And once you truly grasp it, you stop guessing and start leading. Because one day she is present, engaged, responsive, laughing easily, replying fast, and the next day she becomes quiet, distant, slower to respond, or emotionally cooler. Not because something suddenly went wrong, but because uncertainty exposes your inner structure. And most men between 35 and 70 fail this moment not from lack of value, but from lack of emotional discipline. Mixed signals are not chaos, they are pressure, and pressure reveals whether your confidence is real or borrowed, whether your self-respect is stable or conditional. Because attraction does not deepen through reassurance seeking, it deepens through grounded presence. And as Marcus Aurelius reminded the world, the tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or think or do. Only what you do. Which is the backbone of Old Stoic wisdom and the reason calm consistency always wins where emotional reactions fail. In today's world of instant messages, read receipts, and endless comparisons, silence feels louder than ever, but silence is not rejection. It is a test of your internal order. And when attention pulls back, most men either chase too hard, sending extra messages, asking for clarity too soon, or trying to fix something that isn't broken, while others withdraw completely out of pride or frustration. Yet both responses come from the same place: loss of center. While the man who understands the game does neither. He stays steady. He keeps his rhythm. He continues living his life. Because strength is quiet and confidence does not rush. Unpredictability fuels attraction only when it is met with stability, not when it is answered with anxiety. And this is where Stoicism win principles apply directly to modern dating, because emotional restraint is not suppression, it is mastery, and mastery always attracts respect. When she leans in again, the same rule applies. You don't overinvest. You don't accelerate beyond your natural pace. You stay grounded, because extremes kill momentum while steadiness builds trust. And as Seneca said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And preparation here means an iron mind trained to stay calm regardless of emotional fluctuations. The mixed signals test is not about winning her approval. It's about proving to yourself that your emotional state is self-governed. Because the moment another person controls your reactions, you lose leverage, peace, and clarity. And in modern life, where many people are uncertain, overstimulated, and testing connections subconsciously, your consistency becomes rare. And rarity creates attraction without effort. This is not manipulation, this is leadership. Because leadership begins with self-command. And Old Stoic wisdom teaches that you never give power to what you cannot control. You only control yourself, your responses, your standards, and your time. Short rule. Repeat it often. No chasing, no sulking, no emotional bargaining. Because calm presence speaks louder than explanations, and patience outperforms urgency every time. The man who passes this test does not seek reassurance, he becomes reassuring. Not through words, but through behavior, tone, and emotional steadiness. And this steadiness creates safety, curiosity, and respect simultaneously. Modern attraction rewards men who are grounded, purposeful, and internally anchored. Men who understand that silence is not a threat and distance is not a verdict. And as Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, which is the core of Stoicism win strategy applied to real life. Repeat the principle until it becomes instinct. Stay centered when attention fades. Stay composed when it returns. Stay focused on your mission. Because mixed signals collapse when there is nothing to destabilize, no insecurity to hook into, no urgency to exploit. An iron mind is calm under pressure, calm in uncertainty, calm in attraction. And that calm becomes magnetic because it signals maturity, experience, and emotional control. Victory here is internal before it is external. Because when you master your reactions, you master the dynamic. And when you master the dynamic, others naturally adjust to your frame, not the other way around. This is Old Stoic wisdom alive in modern dating. This is how Stoicism win moments are built silently. And this is how an iron mind turns uncertainty into advantage, not by forcing outcomes, not by demanding answers, but by remaining so grounded that emotional tests lose their power. And that is how you win, not loudly, not desperately, but decisively, calmly, and on your own terms. 4. The silent treatment play. She suddenly goes quiet, and the silence feels louder than any argument. No texts lighting up your screen, no calls interrupting your thoughts, just empty space where connection used to be. And almost automatically, your mind tries to solve the puzzle, replaying conversations, rereading moments, inventing meanings that were never confirmed. And that uneasy tension in your chest is exactly the reaction this moment is designed to create, because silence has weight. And in female psychology, silence often works as one of those subtle psychology tricks that pulls attention without force, creates emotional pressure without words, and invites you to reveal who you really are when reassurance is removed. But here is the truth you must understand if you want to master how to fall in love without losing yourself. This silence is rarely about punishment and almost never about cruelty. It is about observation. It is about seeing whether you remain centered when the external signal disappears. And you must not confuse quiet with rejection, because reacting as if you are being abandoned is how men undermine their own attraction. So don't rush to fill the gap. Don't send the just checking in message that really means please respond. Don't over-explain your last joke, your last plan, your last intention, because urgency communicates insecurity faster than any confession ever could. Be still. Be steady. Be grounded in your own rhythm, because calm is attractive precisely because it does not demand attention. Silence becomes powerful only when you let it disturb you. And the moment you keep living fully, the moment you stay focused on your work, your health, your routines, your purpose, the silence loses its grip. And that shift is felt even without words. This is where psychology tricks lose their leverage, because female psychology responds strongly to emotional consistency, not emotional scrambling. And when she notices that you didn't chase, didn't collapse into worry, didn't try to pull her back with pressure, curiosity often replaces distance, attraction rebuilds quietly, and interest returns naturally. That is why patience is not passive. Patience is active confidence. It says, I am comfortable with space because I trust my value. And trust is contagious. So carry on with your life without making a show of it. Don't post for reaction. Don't withdraw in bitterness. Don't pretend you don't care. Just live, because nothing is more compelling than a man whose sense of self does not rise and fall with response times. And when she does return, because most often silence ends the way it began, without explanation, without announcement, you must welcome her back warmly, without interrogation, without subtle punishment, without bringing up the gap like a scorecard. Because resentment poisons connection faster than silence ever could. Be present. Be relaxed. Be open. That is how you show emotional maturity without preaching it. And this is especially important for men between 35 and 70, because at this stage attraction deepens not through drama, but through steadiness, through emotional leadership that feels safe and grounded. And learning how to fall in love now is less about chasing sparks and more about sustaining warmth. Remember, these psychology tricks are not about control. They're about testing emotional presence. And when you respond with composure instead of anxiety, you pass without trying. Silence then becomes a mirror, reflecting your stability back to her. And stability is deeply attractive because it suggests reliability, strength, and inner peace. And don't mistake this for playing games of your own. This is not about pretending not to care. This is about caring without clinging, about allowing space without fear, about trusting that genuine interest does not disappear simply because a conversation pauses. Female psychology often leans toward men who can hold space without tension, who don't turn distance into drama, who don't interpret every quiet moment as a threat. And this understanding of psychology tricks gives you an edge not by manipulation, but by self-mastery. So be disciplined with your emotions. Be gentle with your assumptions. Be firm in your self-respect, because attraction grows where there is room to breathe. And when you demonstrate that you can handle silence with grace, you show that you can handle closeness with balance, that you can love without suffocating, that you can connect without losing your footing. This is how to fall in love wisely. This is how female psychology responds with trust and interest. And this is why silence, when met with calm confidence, often works in your favor, not against you, again and again, through quiet strength, clear boundaries, and a life that continues moving forward whether the phone lights up or not. And now it's your move. If you understand that silence is not rejection but a test of self-control, if you know that calm confidence beats panic every time, then prove it to yourself right now. Drop this sentence in the comments. I stay calm, I stay grounded, and I let attraction come to me. Like this video, subscribe for more sharp psychology tricks, and remind yourself daily, real power in female psychology comes from patience, not pressure, and that's how to fall in love without losing who you are. 5. The overattention trick. Here is the same text, kept exactly as is, with only periods and commas adjusted for clarity and flow, without changing any wording. Sometimes she overwhelms you with attention, and at first it feels intoxicating, almost cinematic, like stepping into warm sunlight after a long winter. Because the compliments flow easily, the replies come fast, the interest feels deep and personal, and for a moment it seems like momentum is on your side. But then, almost without warning, it stops. The warmth cools, the messages slow, the energy shifts, and that sudden contrast is not accidental. It is one of the most common psychology tricks used when attraction is present, because inconsistency has a way of gripping the mind, creating emotional attachment through what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. But what matters here is not the label, it is your response. Because most men panic when attention fades. They replay the highs, they chase the feeling, they try to restore what was freely given before, and that is where the test reveals itself. Not in how you receive attention, but in how you stand when it disappears. Don't confuse attention with value. Be clear on that. Attention is a signal, not a foundation, and if you want to grow into a high-value man, you must learn to enjoy attention without leaning on it for emotional balance. Because dependence quietly erodes attraction, while stability quietly strengthens it. And this is where many men stumble, especially those who have spent years working, providing, sacrificing, and suddenly feel seen again. That rush can feel rare and precious, but you must not cling to it. You must not let attention become oxygen, because when it does, you give away your center. The grounded whether attention is high or low. That is the core lesson. When she is engaged, enjoy it fully. Be present, be warm, be responsive, but don't overextend. Don't abandon your routines. Don't rearrange your entire life around availability. Because consistency is more compelling than intensity, and masculine energy is felt most strongly when a man remains rooted in his purpose regardless of emotional fluctuations. That steadiness signals self-respect without needing to announce it. When the attention fades, and it often does, not because attraction vanished, but because curiosity is being measured, you must resist the urge to fill the silence with effort. Don't chase reassurance. Don't demand clarity. Don't try to recreate the peak. Because peaks are meant to rise and fall, and when you stay calm during the dip, you show emotional range without emotional dependence. And that balance is rare, especially among men who mistake pursuit for presence. You must understand this clearly if you want to attract women in a way that lasts. Attraction deepens not when you react, but when you remain steady, because steadiness creates safety, and safety allows desire to grow without pressure. Female interest often responds to a man who can hold attention lightly, who enjoys connection but does not anchor his worth to it. And that is the quiet confidence of a high-value man. Not loud, not performative, just consistent. Don't turn attention into a scoreboard. Be aware without being reactive. When compliments arrive, receive them with appreciation, not surprise, not disbelief, not overanalysis. And when they pause, accept the space with the same ease. Because emotional discipline is attractive. It signals maturity, experience, and depth, qualities that become increasingly important as men move through their later decades, where attraction is less about novelty and more about presence. Masculine energy thrives in balance, not extremes. It shows itself in how you lead your own emotional state, how you regulate desire without suppressing it, how you remain open without becoming overinvested. And this is not a game of indifference. It is a practice of self-command, because indifference disconnects, while grounded confidence invites connection to return naturally. Stay engaged with your life. That is not a slogan. It is a strategy. Keep your commitments. Maintain your routines. Protect your focus. When your life remains full, attention becomes a bonus, not a necessity. And that distinction changes how you show up in every interaction. It makes you lighter, clearer, more relaxed, and paradoxically more attractive. Because you are not trying to extract something from the moment. You are simply sharing it. That stability earns respect, and respect fuels desire. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily. Because respect grows when a man demonstrates emotional independence without emotional distance. And this is how you attract women who are drawn to calm strength rather than reactive energy. Be patient with the process. Be honest with yourself. You must be willing to examine whether attention makes you feel whole or merely excited. Because excitement fades while wholeness remains. And when you cultivate that inner balance, you no longer fear the ebb and flow of connection. You welcome it as part of the rhythm, knowing that attraction is not built in constant highs, but in how gracefully you move through change. This is not about withholding. Don't do that. It is about holding your center, about enjoying attention without chasing it, about expressing interest without surrendering your footing. And when you do that consistently, you embody the traits of a high-value man. You project masculine energy naturally, and you attract women not through effort, but through presence again and again. Because balance is not just the key to attraction, it is the foundation of lasting desire. 6. The competition setup. When a woman sets up competition around you, mentions admirers, places other men in your orbit, and quietly watches how you respond, understand this clearly. It is not chaos. It is a test of self-command. And the men who win are not the loud ones, not the reactive ones, not the ones who rush to prove anything, but the ones who stand calm, grounded, and certain of their own value. Because in modern life, crowded offices, social media attention, dating apps, mixed social circles, competition is everywhere. And the man who treats it like noise instead of a threat rises above it instantly. As Marcus Aurelius warned, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And that strength shows when you don't stiffen, don't posture, don't interrogate, don't compare, but instead stay relaxed, amused, present, and self-contained, which signals that you are already complete, already chosen, already comfortable being seen without scrambling for approval. Insecurity collapses under pressure because it seeks reassurance, while calm confidence expands because it needs nothing. And that is why you never compete directly. You don't size up the other men. You don't rush to outshine them. You don't change your behavior to win points. You simply carry yourself like the prize, not in arrogance, but in quiet certainty, because attraction responds to stability, not anxiety. And this is where Old Stoic wisdom becomes practical power, reminding you that your job is not to control her environment, but to master your response to it. And when you do that consistently, you Stoicism win without saying a word, Because the man who remains steady in uncertain moments communicates leadership without force. Seneca captured this when he said, "He who is brave is free." And bravery here is emotional bravery, the refusal to be pulled off center by comparison, the refusal to let imagined rivals dictate your mood, your posture, your tone. Because the moment you compete, you place yourself on the same level as everyone else. But the moment you stay grounded, you step above the frame entirely. And in today's world, where attention is fragmented and validation is cheap, this kind of iron mind is rare, memorable, and deeply compelling. Think of it as a silent audit of your inner structure, a moment where you demonstrate whether your sense of worth comes from within or from external confirmation. And the men who pass don't rush. They don't over-explain. They don't claim territory. They simply stay engaged with the moment, speak clearly, listen well, and move with purpose, because purpose is the antidote to jealousy and direction dissolves doubt. This is not about ignoring reality or pretending competition doesn't exist. It's about understanding that competition only has power when you accept its terms, and you don't. Because your standards, your values, your rhythm already guide you. Which is why this test rewards emotional maturity over bravado, patience over impulse, and self-respect over reaction. As Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. And if what you are is a man who trusts his path, his timing, and his presence, then no external setup can shake you. Because you're not auditioning, you're evaluating. You're not chasing, you're choosing. And that shift is everything. In practical terms, this means you stay socially generous. You don't withdraw or sulk. You don't spike your energy to impress. You keep your voice steady, your humor light, your body language open. Because these small signals tell a big story, that you are comfortable being desired without needing to secure it, that you respect yourself enough to let attraction grow naturally, and that confidence, repeated consistently, becomes magnetic. This is how Old Stoic wisdom meets modern psychology, how Stoicism plays out in real rooms with real people, and how an iron mind turns pressure into proof. Because life will always present moments where you're watched more than you're told, tested more than you're challenged, and judged not by what you say, but by how you hold yourself. And the men who master this don't just win attraction, they master life. They move through work, relationships, and uncertainty with the same calm authority, the same inner steadiness, the same quiet certainty that nothing external can grant or take away. Because when you know who you are, competition fades into the background, and what remains is presence, clarity, and the unmistakable energy of a man who is already complete. If you understood this test, you're already separating yourself from the crowd, because most men panic when competition appears, but leaders stay centered, unshaken, and certain of their value. You don't compete. You don't react. You stay calm and let confidence speak. That's how you win. If this message hit home, comment this sentence below to lock it in and signal your mindset to the world. I remain calm. I carry myself like the prize, and I never compete for attention. 7. The hot and cold intensity game. The hot and cold intensity game begins quietly, often disguised as chemistry, when she showers you with warmth, attention, affection, curiosity, and emotional openness, making you feel chosen and deeply seen, and then, without warning, she cools off, becomes less responsive, creates distance, and leaves space filled with silence rather than explanation. And this emotional contrast activates something powerful in the human brain, because unpredictability amplifies desire, and desire fed by inconsistency can feel intoxicating, especially when the highs feel so rewarding that the lows suddenly feel threatening, and most men respond instinctively by chasing the warmth and fearing the distance, trying to restore the emotional high as quickly as possible. But that reaction is exactly where the imbalance begins, because instead of remaining grounded, the man's emotional center starts orbiting her behavior, and the moment that happens, attraction quietly shifts, so don't rush to fix. The silence, don't interrogate the space, and don't assume distance means disinterest, because female psychology is often less about withdrawal and more about testing emotional boundaries. Not as a calculated move, but as a subconscious exploration of whether your sense of self remains intact when the emotional temperature changes. And the real psychology tricks here are not about decoding her every move, but about mastering your internal state. Because consistency in your presence sends a signal, far stronger than intensity ever could, and when you stay calm while she fluctuates, when you remain steady whether she is affectionate or distant, you create a contrast of your own, one that feels safe without being dull and intriguing without being chaotic. And that balance is rare, which makes it magnetic because emotional stability does not kill attraction, it deepens it, allowing excitement to grow without anxiety, and anxiety is what drains desire over time, so be the same man. When she leans in as when she pulls back, speak with clarity instead of urgency, respond with intention instead of reflex, and allow space to exist without filling it with fear, because how to fall in love is not about emotional pursuit. It is about emotional leadership, and leadership begins with self-regulation, not control, and when your mood does not rise and fall based on her availability, she feels something unexpected, a sense of relief mixed with curiosity, because she is no longer carrying the emotional weight of managing your reactions, and that relief creates room for desire to breathe, and desire thrives in spaces that feel light, grounded, and emotionally clean. So don't mirror the highs and crash during the lows. Don't reward inconsistency with overinvestment, and don't punish warmth with withdrawal, because extremes keep the game alive while balance gently ends it. And the moment you stop riding the emotional roller coaster, something shifts in her perception. Because she begins to wonder why your presence feels calm instead of consuming, why conversations feel easy instead of charged, why being around you feels energizing rather than draining, and that curiosity is powerful. Because curiosity invites connection without pressure, and pressure is the fastest way to suffocate attraction, especially as relationships mature. And this is where many men misunderstand female psychology by assuming attraction grows through intensity alone, when in reality, intensity without stability becomes exhausting, and stability without warmth becomes flat. So the goal is not emotional distance, but emotional consistency, which means being engaged without being dependent, interested without being anxious, and present without being reactive, because when you demonstrate that your inner state is self-sustained, she experiences you as someone solid, someone safe, someone exciting in a quiet, confident way, and that combination allows deeper attachment to form naturally, not through force or strategy, but through trust, and trust grows when a woman feels that her closeness is welcomed, but not required for your emotional balance, because being welcomed feels chosen, and being required feels heavy. And excitement paired with emotional safety is the foundation of lasting attraction, which is why these psychology tricks only hold power over men who abandon their center, and why the moment you stop reacting and start responding, the game loses its grip, transforming unpredictability into connection and connection into genuine intimacy. And as you maintain this steady presence, you also protect yourself, because how to fall in love without losing yourself requires boundaries that are calm, not rigid, and confidence that is quiet, not performative. And when you hold that line, you are no longer chasing attention, no longer decoding silence, no longer trying to win emotional approval. You are simply offering your presence and allowing her to choose it freely. And that freedom is deeply attractive because it removes pressure from both sides and replaces it with mutual interest, mutual respect, and mutual curiosity, which is the cleanest expression of female psychology, the most effective use of psychology tricks without manipulation, and the most sustainable path to attraction that grows instead of burns out. Because in the end, the man who stays centered while emotions fluctuate becomes the anchor, not by force, not by control, but by consistency, and consistency, quietly and reliably, is what turns emotional tension into emotional trust, and trust into desire that lasts. Hey, my friend, I'm really glad you stayed with me until the very end. Before you go, let me leave you with something real, something you can actually carry with you into your daily life. All 7 of these mind games come from one deep, unspoken question in her heart. Is this man strong enough to stay steady when emotions rise? These behaviors are not accidents. They are not confusion. They are not manipulation for no reason. They are filters. Women are not looking for men who react too fast, explain too much, or lose themselves trying to be chosen. They are watching how you handle pressure. They are watching whether you stay calm or collapse emotionally. Here is my sincere advice to you, and listen carefully to this part. Stop trying to beat the game. Stop trying to prove yourself. Stop taking everything personally. The moment you stop fighting, you start winning. A grounded man doesn't chase energy, he sets it. He doesn't panic when things feel uncertain. He doesn't cling when attention pulls away. He doesn't crumble when tested. And that calm strength? It speaks louder than words. It creates safety. It creates curiosity. It creates attraction that goes deeper than surface-level desire. When you understand the psychology instead of reacting emotionally, everything changes. You walk slower. You speak less, but with more weight. You listen more. You trust yourself more. And that's when you become rare. Not loud, not aggressive, not desperate, just solid. Remember this one truth as you move forward. A man who controls his emotions controls the moment. And a man who stays centered under pressure becomes unforgettable. If this message helped you see things more clearly, stay connected with the channel. We're here to grow stronger, wiser, and more confident together. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. If a woman tells you her problems, it means she wants to. Psychology tricks. Love doesn't ask for solutions. It asks to be understood. Have you ever noticed what happens after a woman confides in you? She talks about her stress, her doubts, her frustrations. You listen closely. You try to be supportive. Maybe you even offer advice. And then, slowly, something changes. No argument. No clear reason. Just a quiet emotional distance that wasn't there before. Most men brush this off. They assume she just needed to vent, or that the conversation didn't really matter. But that assumption is exactly where attraction begins to fade. When a woman shares her problems, she's rarely asking for answers. She's observing you. That moment is a subtle test of emotional presence, strength, and awareness, and many men fail it without realizing a test ever took place. It's not about saying the right words. It's about the energy you bring, the patience you show, and whether you remain grounded instead of reactive or overly logical. Get it wrong, and what could have built connection quietly turns into emotional withdrawal. In this video, you won't learn how to console or rescue a woman. You'll learn what she's actually assessing when she opens up, and why men who understand this unspoken dynamic are the ones women feel drawn to, while others are left wondering when and why things changed. 1. She's not just venting. Most men hear a woman describe her problems and instantly file it under venting, like it's just emotional steam, just noise, just something to nod through until the weather clears. And that one casual label is the first quiet mistake, because the moment you decide she's just venting, you start treating her words like background music instead of a message with a destination, and you slip into lazy listening. You wait for your opening statement, you rehearse solutions, or you hunt for the quickest off-ramp to change the topic. Don't do that, because you're not standing in a boring conversation. You're standing at a psychological intersection where one path builds connection and the other path slowly starves it. And here's the twist that most men miss. When she tells you her problems, it often means she wants to feel understood before she feels fixed, and that is not a flaw in her thinking. It's how emotional trust gets built in real time. Be honest with yourself. Your brain is trained for repairs. You see a problem and your instincts snap to action. Diagnose, plan, solve, execute. And that mindset can make you very successful in business, logistics, and anything with a measurable finish line. But relationships don't run on efficiency. They run on meaning, and meaning is made through attention, not answers. You must understand the real subtext. She's not handing you a math equation. She's handing you access. She's showing you what weighs on her, what scares her, what disappoints her, and what she hopes could be different. And when you meet that with instant problem solving, she doesn't feel helped. She feels handled, like her emotions are a task you're trying to complete. Don't confuse speed with strength, because the strongest move in that moment is to slow down and aim your attention like a spotlight. That sounds exhausting. I can see why that bothered you. Tell me what part felt the worst. And yes, those sentences can feel almost too simple, but that is exactly why they work. Simple is safe. Simple is clear. Simple tells her you're with her. This is where psychology tricks come in, not manipulative games, but the kind of clean mental switches that turn awkward conversations into bonding moments. Instead of jumping to solutions, ask one clarifying question, then reflect the emotion, then ask what she needs. Do you want me to listen, or do you want ideas? And that question alone separates a man who's present from a man who's merely nearby. Be direct. Be calm. Be steady. Because this is female psychology in action. Many women experience intimacy as he gets me, not he fixed it. And if you give her the first one, the second becomes welcome later. You must also recognize the hidden test that isn't really a test. She's checking if you can hold her reality without trying to control it. And if you can, she relaxes, she softens, she starts associating you with relief. And relief is attractive in a way most men underestimate. Don't take it personally when her story is messy, emotional, or circular. Emotions loop because the nervous system is trying to settle, and your job isn't to interrupt the loop with a lecture, it's to help it land with understanding. And if you want to know how to fall in love in a way that actually lasts, start here. Fall in love with the process of listening well. Because deep love isn't just chemistry, it's the repeated experience of being safe with someone. That is why your just venting assumption can quietly kill attraction. You're basically telling her, without words, your inner world is inconvenient. And even if you never say it, she feels it. Be the man who makes her feel like her inner world matters, not because you're trying to win her, but because you have the maturity to value what's real. Now, let's sharpen it further with a few more psychology tricks you can use immediately. Don't multitask while she talks, because divided attention reads as disrespect even if you mean well. Don't one-up her with your own story, because it turns her moment into your stage. Don't minimize with "it's not that bad," because that phrase is basically emotional eraser fluid. Instead, be the anchor. Use steady eye contact, a calm tone, and short affirmations that show you're tracking, like "I'm following." That makes sense. Keep going. And if you're tempted to fix it, hold your solutions for the end, like a tool you only pick up when asked. You must understand this is female psychology at its most practical. She's not seeking a mechanic, she's seeking a teammate. And when she feels you're on her side, she becomes more open to your guidance later. And yes, this becomes part of how to fall in love for both of you, because when you stop treating her emotions like a problem and start treating them like information, you begin to see her more clearly, you respond more wisely. And you create a bond that isn't built on perfect days, but on honest ones. Lastly, don't try to be clever in the wrong way. Don't joke too early. Don't logic her into silence. Don't rush her to positivity. Be warm. Be grounded. Be consistent. Because the most effective psychology tricks are usually the least flashy. Listen like it matters, validate what's real, ask what she needs, and then act accordingly. And if you do that, you'll notice something almost funny in its simplicity. She'll start talking to you more, trusting you more, leaning toward you more, because you didn't treat her problems like noise, you treated them like a bridge. And that bridge is where connection lives, where attraction grows, where respect deepens, and where two people quietly learn, again and again, how to fall in love. 2. Why she's bringing it to you. Why she's bringing it to you is the question most men never stop to ask, and missing that question is where connection quietly slips through your fingers. Men bond through action. You do things together. You work, build, compete, fix, move. You talk sideways while your hands are busy. Emotions often sit in the background, not because men don't feel, but because feeling is rarely the entry point. So when a woman starts opening up, the male brain rushes to categorize. Is this a problem I need to solve? Is this noise I should ignore? Is this something I need to manage before it gets bigger? Don't rush that process. Because the most important question is not "what do I do with this?" but "why is she bringing this to me?" That is where meaning lives. That is where attraction either grows roots or slowly dries out. Here's the reality most men were never taught. Women don't open up emotionally at random. They don't just unload their inner world on whoever happens to be nearby. Emotional sharing is selective. It costs energy. It requires vulnerability. It creates exposure. And people don't spend that currency casually. If she didn't care, she wouldn't bother. If you didn't matter, she would keep it surface level, polite, light, distant. So when she brings you her thoughts, her worries, her confusion, her frustrations, she is making a choice. Be clear about that. Be grounded in it. That choice alone tells you something important about how she sees you right now. This is where many men accidentally downgrade themselves without realizing it. They treat the moment as neutral, as if it means nothing, as if it's just emotional weather passing through. Don't do that. The act of sharing is not neutral. It is intentional. It means she sees you as relevant enough to witness her internal state. That relevance is fragile. Handle it well, and it deepens. Mishandle it, and it fades into emotional background noise. And once you're background noise, attraction rarely finds its way back. If you want to understand what it means to be a high-value man, start here. A high-value man doesn't panic when emotions show up. He doesn't rush to shut them down. He doesn't feel threatened by them. He stays steady. He stays present. He understands that emotional moments are not traps, they are openings. Don't confuse calm with passivity. Calm is control. Calm is confidence. Calm is masculine energy expressed correctly, not loudly. When she brings something to you, she is not always asking for answers. Sometimes she is asking a quieter question. Can you hold this with me? That is not a test designed to make you fail. That is an invitation. Be the man who recognizes it. Be the man who understands that listening without rushing is not weakness, it is restraint. And restraint is attractive. You must also understand how this ties into attraction at a deeper level. Women often bond through emotional exchange. Sharing creates closeness. Being received creates safety. Safety creates openness. And openness is where attraction grows. If you dismiss, minimize, or rush her emotional expression, she doesn't just feel unheard, she feels misjudged. Don't say, "It's not a big deal." Don't say, "You're overthinking it." Don't jump straight into solutions unless she asks. Those moves don't make you strong. They make you inaccessible. If your goal is to attract women in a grounded, lasting way, learn to value these moments properly. Attraction is not built only through charm, confidence, or appearance. It's built through repeated experiences of being understood. That is why emotional relevance matters more than clever words. A high-value man knows that his presence alone can regulate a room. He doesn't need to dominate the conversation. He doesn't need to perform. He needs to be there, fully. This is also where masculine energy shows its best side. Masculine energy is not about control. It's about containment. It's the ability to remain centered while someone else is processing. It's the ability to listen without collapsing or attacking. It's the ability to say, "I hear you," and mean it. When a woman feels that from you, something shifts. She relaxes. She opens. She associates you with steadiness. And steadiness is deeply attractive. Don't underestimate how rare this is. Many men either emotionally disappear or emotionally overcorrect. They either detach completely or rush in with fixes and lectures. Both miss the mark. You must stay balanced. You must stay engaged without hijacking the moment. That balance is what separates men who are tolerated from men who are chosen. And remember this. Whether her sharing turns into attraction or fades into nothing depends entirely on how you treat that moment. Not later. Not after you've had time to think. Right then. Right there. Every time she brings something real to you, she's quietly asking if you're someone she can trust with more. Answer that question wisely. If you want to be a high-value man who can attract women naturally, stop seeing emotional sharing as a burden. See it as information. See it as access. See it as a signal that you matter in her world right now. Don't waste that signal. Be present. Be calm. Be attentive. That is masculine energy used correctly. That is how you attract women without forcing anything. And that is how relevance turns into connection instead of fading into silence. And now listen closely. If this message landed, don't let it pass without action. Drop a comment right now and claim it. I understand why she brings it to me. That single sentence reminds you that her sharing is not random, not noise, not a burden, but a moment of relevance you either rise to or lose. If you agree, comment it below, like this video, subscribe for more psychology tricks, and remember this every day. When she opens up, attraction doesn't grow from answers, it grows from how you show up. 3. Emotional gatekeeping. There is a critical psychological truth many men between 35 and 70 never fully grasp, and misunderstanding it quietly costs them respect, clarity, and leverage in modern relationships. When a woman tells you her problems, she is not doing what she does with everyone, and she is not simply being emotional. She is making a deliberate choice, because emotional access is never public property. It is selective, guarded, and filtered through instinct, safety, and discernment. Men who fail to recognize this mistake openness for noise and miss the signal entirely. Women may laugh in many rooms, joke with many people, and share light stories without consequence, but emotional disclosure is different because it involves fear, uncertainty, private frustration, and inner tension, the unpolished parts that are never shown without reason. When those come out, it is intentional. This is emotional gatekeeping in action. When she speaks about her problems, she is not asking to be rescued, fixed, or absorbed into emotional chaos. She is observing, measuring, and deciding whether you are capable of remaining steady while reality is placed in front of you. This is where men either rise or quietly remove themselves from relevance. As Carl Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed, and the reaction she is watching for is not excitement, not urgency, not anxiety, but composure. Modern life is fast, loud, and mentally exhausting, and most people are reactive by default, which means a man who can listen without flinching immediately separates himself. This is not about being silent or distant. It is about having an iron mind, the ability to stay present without being shaken, to hear complexity without collapsing into it. Old Stoic wisdom teaches that control begins internally, not externally, and nowhere is this more evident than in emotional moments, because when you remain grounded, you communicate strength without words. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this insight applies directly here. Her problems are not a test of your solutions, they are a test of your stability." Men who rush to fix often fail. Men who dismiss fail faster. Men who dramatize fail completely. The man who listens calmly, acknowledges without exaggeration, and responds with clarity demonstrates leadership in the only way that matters in private moments. This is how Stoicism plays out in real life, not as philosophy, but as behavior. Emotional gatekeeping means she is deciding who gets closer to her inner world and who stays on the surface, and this decision is influenced by how you handle pressure, uncertainty, and vulnerability without becoming overwhelmed. In modern relationships, where emotional noise is everywhere and attention is cheap, steadiness becomes rare and rarity creates value. As Friedrich Nietzsche observed, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded, and a man who cannot regulate his inner state will always be ruled by external emotion, never respected by it." When a woman speaks about her struggles, she is subconsciously asking whether you can hold space without losing structure, whether you can remain calm without withdrawing, whether you can engage without being consumed. This is where Old Stoic wisdom becomes practical armor, where Stoicism is not theoretical but lived, and where the iron mind proves its worth. The advice is simple but demanding. Listen more than you speak, respond slower than you feel, and never confuse emotional openness with emotional instability. You are not there to absorb her stress. You are there to remain solid while she expresses it. This posture builds trust quietly and deeply. In a world where many men chase approval and over-explain themselves, the man who stays composed sends a powerful signal. He is safe. he is grounded, and he understands reality. Emotional gatekeeping rewards that man. Remember this from every angle. Repeat it until it settles into instinct. When she shares her problems, she is choosing you. When you stay calm, you justify that choice. When you hold steady, you earn more access. This is how men master emotional dynamics, how they master modern life, and how they move forward with confidence, clarity, and purpose, guided by Old Stoic wisdom, strengthened by Stoicism and anchored by an iron mind. 4. You are being tested. When a woman tells you her problems, you're being tested in a quiet, invisible way, and this moment carries far more weight than most men ever realize. You may think this is just conversation. You may think this is about listening, comforting, or offering support. Don't be fooled. Something deeper is unfolding. When she opens up, she is not simply releasing stress. She is observing you. She is feeling you. She is asking a silent but powerful question without ever saying it out loud. Can this man remain steady when my world feels shaky? That is the real test, and it has nothing to do with how smart you sound or how fast you respond. She is not evaluating your logic. She is not searching for solutions. She is not even measuring kindness in the way most men imagine. She is measuring emotional stability. She is watching whether you can stay grounded while she temporarily cannot. This is one of the most misunderstood elements of female psychology, and understanding it is one of the most valuable psychology tricks you can ever learn. Many men fail here because they misunderstand the role they are meant to play. They interrupt. They rush to fix. They give advice she didn't ask for. Don't do that. That behavior doesn't signal strength. It signals discomfort. It signals that you cannot sit with emotional weight without trying to escape it. Be still. Be calm. Be present. That is what she is looking for. When she speaks about her problems, she is placing emotional pressure into the space between you, not to see if you can remove it, but to see if you collapse under it. That is the distinction most men miss. She wants to feel that even when she is overwhelmed, you remain centered. That calm presence creates safety, and safety is the foundation of attraction, trust, and long-term connection. This is how female psychology works at a deep level, far beyond words. She senses it before she can explain it. If you mirror her stress, she feels unsafe. If you become anxious, she feels alone. If you rush to solve, she feels misunderstood. Don't absorb her emotions. Don't distance yourself either. Stay grounded right where you are. Listen fully. Let pauses exist. Let her finish her thoughts. That silence is not emptiness. It is strength. This is where real connection is built. This is where many men accidentally sabotage attraction without realizing it. They think they are helping, but they're actually showing that they need the emotional situation to change before they can feel okay. You must be okay first. That is the role. That is the test. When you remain emotionally steady, something shifts inside her. She relaxes. Her nervous system settles. She feels supported without being managed. This is one of the most effective psychology tricks because it is not a trick at all. It is emotional leadership. And emotional leadership is essential if you want to understand how to fall in love in a way that lasts. Love is not built on constant happiness. Love is built on knowing that when things feel uncertain, someone can remain solid. Be that man. Don't dramatize her problems. Don't minimize them either. Stay balanced. Acknowledge her feelings without drowning in them. That balance speaks louder than reassurance ever could. In female psychology, consistency matters more than intensity. She is watching patterns, not moments. One calm response may not mean much, but repeated emotional steadiness builds trust over time. That trust becomes attraction. That attraction becomes attachment. This is how to fall in love without forcing it. This is how connection deepens naturally. You must understand that when she opens up, she is offering you a window into her inner world. How you behave in that moment tells her whether you are safe to let in further. Don't rush. Don't perform. Don't try to be impressive. Be present. Be grounded. Be emotionally clear. This is not about saying the perfect thing. It is about being the right energy in the room. That energy communicates strength, reliability, and emotional maturity. These qualities matter deeply in female psychology, especially as people grow older and value peace over excitement. Men who master this don't need to chase. They don't need to convince. They don't need to manipulate with shallow psychology tricks. Their presence does the work. When a woman feels that she can be emotional without destabilizing you, something powerful happens. She feels free. She feels understood. She feels connected. That is how to fall in love in a way that feels natural and secure. Remember this. When she shares her problems, she is not asking you to carry them. She is asking if you can stand beside them without losing yourself. Don't panic. Don't overanalyze. Don't shut down. Be solid. That is the test. And passing it quietly changes everything. If this message opened your eyes, don't just watch and move on. Act. Like the video, subscribe for more insight, and comment below to lock this lesson into your mind and signal that you understand the test. Comment to remember, I stay grounded when emotions rise. 5. Why fixing pushes her away. It is one of the hardest truths for many men to accept, especially men who genuinely care and believe they are doing the right thing. This is where a lot of good men quietly lose women without ever understanding what went wrong. They listen carefully. They pay attention. They lean in with sincere concern. And the moment she finishes explaining what's bothering her, they shift gears. Advice starts flowing. Strategies appear. Solutions stack up. Fixing feels natural to men because it is how many of us were taught to show care. Do something. Improve the situation. Make the problem disappear. That instinct makes sense. But here is the paradox you must understand. When you rush to fix, she doesn't feel helped. She feels unheard. Don't confuse intention with impact. That is the lesson. When you move too quickly into problem-solving mode, she doesn't experience relief. She experiences distance. Instead of feeling understood, she feels corrected. Instead of feeling supported, she feels managed. And her nervous system notices immediately. It reads that energy as pressure, not presence. Be clear about this. Emotional connection is not built through solutions. It is built through attunement. When you fix too fast, you shift the dynamic from partnership to instruction, even if you never mean to. The more you fix, the more she closes. That is not because she dislikes you. It is because her system is protecting itself. A high-value man understands this difference deeply. He knows when to act and when to stay still. He knows that presence often matters more than performance. When a woman shares what's troubling her, she is not handing you a task list. She is inviting you into her internal world. Don't rush through the doorway. Don't rearrange the furniture. Be there. Listen. Let her finish. Let her breathe. That space you create is not passive. It is powerful. This is how you naturally attract women without chasing or convincing. Calm presence creates safety. Safety creates openness. Openness creates connection. When you interrupt that process with fixing, you unintentionally shut it down. You must understand that emotional expression is not a problem to solve. It is an experience to witness. Be patient. Be grounded. Be steady. That steadiness communicates masculine energy far more clearly than any advice ever could. Many men believe that silence means disinterest. That is not true. Thoughtful silence signals confidence. It shows you are not overwhelmed by emotion. It shows you can stay centered even when the conversation carries weight. Don't panic when you don't know what to say. You don't need a perfect line. You need presence. Say less. Mean more. A simple acknowledgement can do more than a detailed plan. That sounds heavy. I get why that would be frustrating. I'm here. These words don't fix anything, and that is exactly why they work. They tell her she is not alone with her experience. That is what she is really listening for. This is where many men unintentionally drain attraction. They believe leadership means direction at all times. It does not. Leadership sometimes means holding space. A high-value man knows that emotional steadiness is leadership. He doesn't rush to prove usefulness. He already knows his value. When you stay calm and attentive without trying to control the outcome, you project masculine energy in its most grounded form. Not loud, not forceful, just solid. This is what helps you attract women who are emotionally mature and seeking real connection, not surface level excitement. Understand this clearly. Fixing too fast communicates impatience. It suggests that her feelings are an inconvenience to be resolved quickly. Even if you don't mean that, the message still lands. Don't defend yourself against that truth. Learn from it. You must slow down your response if you want to deepen connection. Let her talk. Let the story unfold. Let emotions settle naturally. Often, she will find clarity on her own simply because you gave her room to think out loud. When that happens, something powerful occurs. She associates calm, relief, and clarity with you. That association builds trust. Trust builds attraction. Attraction builds intimacy. This is not theory. This is lived experience. A high-value man does not need to fix everything to feel useful. He understands that his presence alone has weight. He is comfortable not being the hero in every moment. That comfort is attractive. That comfort signals security. This is the quiet strength of masculine energy. It does not rush. It does not explain itself. It does not compete with emotion. It anchors it. When you stop fixing and start listening, you don't lose relevance. You gain depth. When you resist the urge to manage her feelings, you allow her to trust them. And when she trusts her own feelings around you, connection deepens naturally. Remember this. When she talks about her problems, she is not asking you to take over. She is asking you to stay present. Don't interrupt the process. Don't jump ahead. Don't assume responsibility that wasn't given to you. Be patient. Be attentive. Be steady. That is how you attract women without effort. That is how a high-value man moves through emotional conversations with confidence. And that is how masculine energy quietly does what force never can. 6. Emotional containment. When a woman tells you her problems, it is not a test of your intelligence or a request for a repair manual. It is a moment that calls for emotional containment, the quiet strength to remain steady while the storm moves through her. Because what calms her is not your solution, but your stability, not your words, but your presence, not action, but control of yourself. And this is where many men fail in modern life, by confusing leadership with fixing, when in truth leadership is holding the line inside your own mind. Emotional containment means you do not rush, you do not argue, you do not defend, you do not explain, you do not try to win the moment. You simply stay grounded, breathing slow, listening fully, letting her emotions exist without resistance. Because the moment you jump in emotionally, you become part of the chaos, and chaos never brings calm. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And that strength is felt instantly by the people around you, especially a woman who is opening up. Because she is not looking for answers, she is looking for safety, and safety comes from a man who is unmoved by emotional turbulence, a man who practices Old Stoic wisdom in daily life, a man who understands that Stoicism win moments are built through restraint, not reaction. In today's world of constant noise, notifications, and emotional overexpression, your ability to remain centered is rare and powerful. And when she speaks and you listen without interrupting, correcting, or steering the conversation, you send a clear signal. I can handle this. I am here. I am not shaken. And that signal does more than any advice ever could. Because as Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. And what you must be in these moments is calm, solid, and present. Many men think silence is weakness, but silence used with intention is authority. Silence is mastery. Silence is the iron mind at work. And when you hold your composure, you allow her nervous system to settle naturally, because emotions are contagious, and calm spreads just as fast as panic. So if you want peace in your relationship, you must become peace, not perform it, not pretend it, but embody it fully. Emotional containment is not passive. It is active self-command. It is choosing not to react even when your instincts tell you to jump in, explain, or take control. And this skill carries far beyond relationships, into leadership, business, and life itself, because the man who can remain centered under emotional pressure wins everywhere. And that is why Old Stoic wisdom has endured for centuries, because it teaches you that mastery of self comes before mastery of circumstances, that Stoicism win is not loud or flashy, but quiet and undeniable, and that an iron mind is built through repeated discipline in small moments like these. In practical terms, this means when she speaks, you slow down. You listen without planning your response. You acknowledge what she feels without labeling it. You stay physically relaxed. You keep your tone steady. And you resist the urge to fix what does not need fixing, because fixing is often about your discomfort, not her needs. And the moment you realize that, you step into real masculine maturity. Modern life pressures men to perform, to solve, to produce instantly, but emotional leadership demands patience, presence, and control. And as Seneca said, he who conquers himself is the greatest warrior, because conquering yourself is harder than conquering any external problem. When you practice emotional containment consistently, you create relationships that feel safe, respectful, and deeply connected. You reduce unnecessary conflict. You become someone others trust in moments of uncertainty. And you move through life with clarity and confidence, because you are no longer pulled into emotional turbulence that does not serve you. Remember this clearly and repeat it to yourself until it becomes instinct. She does not need you to fix. She needs you to hold steady. She does not need solutions. She needs presence. She does not need intensity. She needs calm. And every time you choose restraint over reaction, you sharpen your iron mind, you honor old Stoic wisdom, and you prove that Stoicism win is not theory, but lived experience. And this is how you master life, one composed moment at a time. 7. Grounding versus carrying. When a woman tells you her problems, there is a quiet test happening, and most men miss it because they confuse grounding with carrying, and that confusion slowly drains attraction without either person realizing why. Grounding means you stay present, steady, and emotionally available without absorbing her feelings into your own body and mind. Carrying means you internalize her stress, take ownership of her emotional state, rush to fix what was never yours to fix, and allow her turbulence to shake your center. One creates safety and desire. The other slowly dissolves it. Do not confuse empathy with emotional self-sacrifice. Be calm. Be rooted. That is grounding. Carrying feels noble at first because you want to help, you want to be useful, you want to be the solution. But female psychology does not respond to a man who loses himself trying to rescue emotions that were never meant to be rescued. When she shares a problem, she is often not asking for a solution, not asking for emotional fusion, and certainly not asking you to fall apart alongside her. She is asking, without words, "Can you stay solid while I am not?" That is the moment that defines attraction. You must listen without drowning. You must care without collapsing. That balance is one of the most misunderstood psychology tricks in relationships. Grounding looks simple on the surface. You listen. You nod. You reflect. You stay present. But inside, you remain anchored. You do not tense up. You do not scramble for answers. You do not treat her emotions like a fire alarm. Carrying, on the other hand, sneaks in quietly. Your chest tightens. Your thoughts race. You feel responsible for changing her mood. You rehearse solutions while she is still speaking. You feel uneasy until she feels better. That is the shift. Attraction fades not because you care, but because you care in a way that removes polarity. Female psychology is wired to respond to emotional steadiness, not emotional absorption. When you carry her feelings, you send an unspoken message. I can't stay centered unless you are okay. That is not reassuring. That is pressure. Grounding says something very different. I can hear you. I understand you. And I am still myself. That creates trust. That creates safety. That creates space for how to fall in love without forcing it. Do not interrupt her story with fixes. Don't rush her to positivity. Don't turn her emotions into a problem-solving exercise unless she clearly asks. Be present. Be slow. Be attentive. Let silence do some of the work. Silence is not absence. Silence is strength when used correctly. When you ground her, your calm nervous system invites her nervous system to settle naturally. When you carry her, your tension amplifies hers. This is why so many men feel drained over time while doing what they believe is the right thing. They're carrying, not grounding. And attraction does not thrive in emotional exhaustion. Psychology tricks are not about manipulation. They're about understanding invisible dynamics. One of the deepest truths in female psychology is that emotions want space, not ownership. They want to be expressed, not managed. They want to be witnessed, not fixed. You must allow her emotions to exist without making them your responsibility. That does not make you distant. It makes you dependable. When you stay grounded, you become a stable reference point. When you carry, you become emotionally reactive. And reactivity slowly erodes desire, even when intentions are good. Grounding is also about boundaries, not walls. Boundaries say, I am here with you, but I am not losing myself. Walls say, I don't care. Carrying says, I care so much that I disappear. None of those extremes build lasting connection. The grounded man listens fully, responds thoughtfully, and remains internally calm. He doesn't borrow stress. He doesn't mirror chaos. He doesn't turn emotions into a scoreboard of how well he is performing as a partner. He simply stays present. That presence is rare. That presence is attractive. That presence teaches you how to fall in love without force or fear. Remember this when she opens up next time. Don't tense. Don't fix. Don't absorb. Be steady. Be attentive. Be grounded. That is not emotional distance. That is emotional leadership. And once you understand this distinction, these psychology tricks stop feeling mysterious and start feeling natural, because the more you practice grounding, the more attraction grows without effort, the more respect deepens without words, and the more you understand female psychology as something to honor, not carry. 8. How men lose women quietly. This is how most men lose women. Not through a fight, not through betrayal. They lose them quietly. It starts small, almost invisible. She shares less. She keeps things lighter. Stories become shorter. Emotions become edited. The deeper conversations slowly disappear, not because she has nothing to say, but because she has learned something painful through repetition. She learned that opening up does not lead to connection. It leads to distance. So she adapts. Don't ignore this moment. Be alert to it. That is the warning sign most men miss. When a woman stops sharing her inner world, she is not being mysterious. She is being careful. She is protecting herself from the feeling of being unheard, rushed, corrected, or emotionally handled instead of emotionally met. And once that door closes, it rarely slams. It just drifts shut, quietly, politely, without drama. A man often believes he is doing the right thing. He listens halfway while thinking of solutions. He responds with logic when emotion was offered. He minimizes without realizing it. He stays silent when presence was needed. He jokes when seriousness was invited. None of this looks like failure on the surface. But inside her, a conclusion forms. This is not a place where my inner world lands safely. That is not anger. That is clarity. And female attraction does not survive long once that clarity settles. A high-value man understands this moment is not about fixing her feelings. It is about holding space without shrinking it. Don't interrogate. Don't rush to conclusions. Don't turn vulnerability into a task to complete. Be present. Be steady. Be curious. That is how you attract women without trying to perform or impress. Masculine energy, when grounded and calm, invites openness. When distracted or defensive, it quietly shuts it down. When her sharing becomes lighter, many men relax. They think things are easier now. Less emotion, less depth, less tension. That is the illusion. What is actually happening is emotional withdrawal, not peace. She is no longer investing her inner self. She is conserving it. And relationships do not end when women stop loving. They end when women stop sharing. You must understand this distinction. Love can exist quietly for a while, but attraction needs engagement. A high-value man notices the shift early. He doesn't panic. He doesn't plead. He doesn't pressure. He adjusts his presence. He listens with intention. He asks without prying. He responds without correcting. That is masculine energy at its most effective, calm, grounded, and emotionally fluent. This is one of the least talked about ways to attract women long term, not through intensity, but through consistency. Don't wait for a crisis to change your behavior. Don't assume silence means comfort. Be the man who makes emotional expression feel welcomed, not risky. Be the man who can sit with complexity without shutting down or taking over. That is what keeps connection alive. That is what keeps desire engaged. A high-value man doesn't demand openness. He creates the conditions where it feels natural. That is how you attract women without force. That is how masculine energy becomes reassuring instead of overwhelming. And that is why men don't usually lose women in loud, dramatic moments. They lose them in the quiet spaces where listening stopped, curiosity faded, and presence was replaced with assumption. Hey, thanks for staying with me till the end, my friend. If there's one thing you should remember from this video, it's this. When a woman shares her problems, she's not asking you to be a superhero or a fixer. She's quietly asking, "Can I feel safe with you right now?" So don't rush, don't panic, don't over-explain. Stay calm, listen fully, and be present. That steady energy speaks louder than any clever words ever could. Real strength isn't about having all the answers. It's about being grounded when things get uncomfortable. That's what builds trust. That's what makes a man unforgettable. If this message helped you see things more clearly, take it seriously and apply it the next time it matters. Growth starts with awareness, and respect grows from emotional stability. Thanks again for watching. Take care of yourself, stay grounded, and I'll see you in the next video. If she never texts or calls you first, do these 6 things and watch her chase you. Psychology tricks. Love is not about chasing someone who pulls away, but about standing still long enough to see who chooses to walk toward you. Have you ever noticed how she always answers your messages, yet never seems to send one first? She doesn't vanish, but she doesn't step closer either. You're left in that gray zone, connected, but never fully chosen. For many men, that situation feels like emotional limbo. It's confusing, it's draining, and over time, it can quietly eat away at your confidence. You start wondering what you're doing wrong or what more you should be doing to finally tip things in your favor. But here's the reality most men overlook. When a woman never initiates contact, it's rarely an accident. It reflects a dynamic, not just about her interest, but about the position you've accepted in the interaction. And if nothing changes, you stay stuck doing the pursuing while she stays comfortably distant. That's why today matters. I'm going to walk you through 6 powerful shifts to make when she never reaches out first. These aren't games. They're mindset changes that help you stop overinvesting, recognize what's really happening, and reclaim your sense of self-respect and direction. Before we get into them, take a moment and look inward. How often have you ignored what you wanted just to keep things going? How many times have you told yourself it's fine, when deep down you knew the effort wasn't equal? Carrying the connection alone might feel safer than facing the truth, but it also keeps you stuck. This is the point where things change. Not by trying harder, not by sending one more message, but by deciding that your time, energy, and presence have value and should be met with the same level of intention. If you're ready to stop settling for half effort and start showing up differently in your relationships, stay with me. What comes next isn't about chasing, it's about shifting the dynamic entirely. Let's begin with the first thing you need to do to break this pattern for good. Number 1. Stop rewarding her silence. Number 1 is simple and sharp. Stop rewarding her silence. Because when a woman never reaches out first, most men fall into the same quiet trap. They rush to fill the gap. They send the good morning, the check-in, the long message, hoping that if they give more, try harder, stay steady, she will finally meet them halfway. But that is not how hearts work. That is not how female psychology works. And that is not how to fall in love in a healthy, grounded way. Because the more you cover her silence with your effort, the more you teach her a dangerous lesson, that she does not have to move, that she does not have to invest, that she does not have to initiate while still enjoying your presence, your warmth, your attention. And picture this clearly. A man wakes up, phone in hand. No message from her, not even a simple good morning. His chest tightens. His mind spins. So he types first. She replies later, short, flat, predictable. And the next day he does it again, and the day after that, until a routine is born where she gives almost nothing yet receives the comfort of knowing he will show up like clockwork. And here is the hard truth. When you always take the first step, she never has to take one at all. And every time you answer silence with more effort, you make your attention less rare, less meaningful, less valuable. Because people, by nature, do not cherish what costs them nothing. That is not cruelty. That is psychology tricks at work in everyday life, the kind you should understand, not to manipulate, but to protect your worth. Because when something is always available, it stops feeling special. And when something asks for nothing, it earns nothing in return. So the shift you must make is not louder, not faster, not more emotional. It is quieter, steadier, restrained. Don't text just because the silence makes you uneasy. Don't call just because you fear the connection might fade. Don't check in to calm your own nerves. Be still. Be grounded. Let the silence exist. Let the space breathe. Let her feel the absence of what she has grown used to receiving without lifting a finger. And no, that is not punishment. That is self-respect. That is you protecting your energy, your time, your presence. Because your attention is a currency. And when you spend it freely on someone who has not invested anything back, you drain its value. You tell the world and her that it costs nothing to have access to you. And that is a story you must stop telling. Because silence only has power when you keep trying to erase it. But when you stop covering it with texts and calls, it becomes noticeable. It becomes a mirror. It shows whether she cares enough to step forward or whether she was always comfortable letting you carry the weight alone. And this is where most men miss the lesson. They think silence means failure. But often silence is the test. It reveals the truth without saying a word. So don't rush to fix what might be exposing the real dynamic. Be patient. Be observant. Let her show you who she is when you are no longer doing all the work. Because if she values you, she will feel the gap. She will wonder. She will reach out, not out of fear, but out of genuine interest. And if she does not, then you have not lost anything. You have learned something. And that knowledge is priceless, especially for men who want to understand female psychology and how to fall in love without losing themselves in the process. Because real connection is built on mutual movement, not one-sided chasing, not silent comfort on her side and restless effort on yours. So you must change the pattern, not with drama, not with speeches, but with calm consistency. You step back. You stop initiating every thread. You give her the chance to step in. And here is the deeper layer. When you always lead, you remove her opportunity to feel curiosity, to feel a little uncertainty, to feel the natural pull that comes when something is not guaranteed. And that pull, when healthy, is what draws people closer. That is one of those psychology tricks people talk about. But in truth, it is just human nature responding to value. And value is created by boundaries, by standards, by knowing when to pause instead of push. So be clear. Be composed. You must remember that your presence should be a gift, not a habit she barely notices. And when you stop rewarding silence, you send a quiet message. That connection requires effort from both sides. That is how to fall in love with balance. That is how female psychology meets masculine stability, not in chasing, but in choosing. And yes, it may feel uncomfortable at first because you're used to filling the space. You are used to being the engine. But growth often feels like stillness before it feels like strength. So don't panic when you don't hear back. Don't assume the worst. Just hold your ground. Live your life. Stay engaged with your purpose. Because a man with a full life does not cling to a quiet phone. He lets it ring when it rings. And that calm confidence changes everything. It makes your attention feel earned. It makes your words carry weight. It makes your presence something she can miss. And missing is the doorway to appreciation. So here is the truth you must carry with you. Silence only makes noise when you stop covering it with your effort. And in that noise, you will hear exactly what you need to know. whether she is willing to meet you, or whether it is time for you to move forward with dignity, armed with understanding, with psychology tricks used wisely, with respect for female psychology, and with a clear path on how to fall in love without giving away your value. Because you are not here to be a daily notification. You are here to be a man whose presence matters. So be that man, starting now. Number 2. Match her energy. Most men don't lose a woman because they are too kind or too genuine. That is not the problem. They lose her because the balance quietly slips away, because they keep giving long after she has stopped meeting them halfway, and they don't even notice when the scale tips. Attraction needs reciprocity. Connection needs rhythm. That is the rule. When one person is sprinting while the other is barely walking, the distance doesn't stay hidden. It shows. It can be felt. And if you want to become a high-value man, you must respect that balance more than your own urge to chase. Picture this. A man sends 4 texts throughout the day, little check-ins, small updates, a joke he hopes will land. He is trying to stay present. Hours pass. She might respond once, maybe twice if he's lucky. Short replies, no questions back, no spark, no effort. Yet instead of seeing what is right in front of him, he tells himself a comforting story. I just need to be consistent. I need to show more interest. I need to prove I'm different. So he doubles down. Be honest. Don't do that. That is how good intentions turn into quiet frustration. He believes effort will inspire effort, that if he pours in enough, she will finally pour back. But what she feels is not inspiration. It is pressure. It is a one-sided pursuit. It is energy that doesn't invite a woman closer. It makes her lean away, not because she is unkind, not because she is confused, but because attraction grows in space, not in squeeze. You must understand this if you want to attract women who choose you freely, not out of habit. Overcompensation doesn't come from confidence. It comes from fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of being forgotten. Fear that if he pauses, she will disappear. And that fear seeps into every message, every reply, every fast response. It changes the tone. It changes the posture. It turns warmth into need. Don't let that happen. Be steady. Be grounded. Be the man who knows his value without having to announce it. That is masculine energy at its best. Quiet, certain, unforced. Women are intuitive. They sense when a man is moving from calm confidence and when he is moving from anxious hope. And nothing cools attraction faster than a man trying to earn what should grow naturally. Don't audition for a role she hasn't offered. Don't negotiate for attention. Be present, yes, but also be whole on your own. That is how a high-value man carries himself. Not with noise, with presence. Think of connection like a dance, not a performance. A dance. It is not about one person taking all the steps. It is about movement meeting movement, flow meeting flow. If one partner carries all the rhythm, all the timing, all the effort, it stops being a dance. It becomes someone trying to drag another person across the floor. And nobody enjoys that for long. Remember that image. Hold it in your mind, because that is what happens when you give more than you receive. It stops being connection and becomes emotional labor. So here is the shift you must make. Simple, powerful. Mirror her investment, not her words, her actions. If she texts with intention, respond with the same warmth. If she calls and plans, meet her there. Show up, be engaged. That is strength. But if she goes quiet, you don't rush in to rescue the moment. You don't break the silence just to soothe your own nerves. You don't chase her shadow. You don't try to revive something she is not feeding. Don't do it. Be still. Let the space speak. Matching her energy is not about being cold. It is not about games. That is not the point. It is about standing tall in your own dignity and allowing her to reveal her true interest without you carrying the entire weight. You must let her show you who she is when you are not doing all the work for her. That is clarity. And clarity is power. When a woman feels that balanced push and pull, something changes. If she is genuinely interested, she leans in. She starts matching you back. She reaches out. She invests. Not because you chased harder, but because the space invited her to step forward. And if she is not interested, her lack of effort becomes unmistakable. No more guessing. No more late night wondering. Just truth. And that truth, even when it stings a little, is a gift, not a loss. Don't fear that clarity. Be grateful for it. It saves your time. It protects your heart. It keeps you moving towards someone who can actually meet you. That is how you attract women who respect you, not just enjoy the attention you give. That is how you build a connection where both people walk, not one running while the other watches. Be this man. The man who responds, not chases. The man who offers warmth, not pressure. The man who enjoys connection but does not cling to it. That is masculine energy in motion. Calm, centered, alive. And yes, it takes discipline. It takes patience. It takes the courage to pause when every impulse tells you to push. But you must do it if you want something real. Don't confuse distance with dignity. Distance is running away. Dignity is standing your ground. Matching energy isn't pulling back in anger. It is holding steady in respect. Respect for her choices. Respect for yourself. That is what makes a high-value man different. He doesn't beg for rhythm. He waits to see if the music is shared. So remember this. If she steps forward, you step forward. If she slows down, you slow down. If she invests, you invest. If she goes quiet, you don't panic. You don't perform. You don't plead. Be calm. Be full in your own life. Be the man who knows that real connection cannot be dragged across the floor. It must dance. And when you live this way, something powerful happens. You stop chasing what isn't choosing you. You start attracting what aligns with you. That is how you attract women who see you, not just the effort you bring. That is how masculine energy becomes magnetic. And that is how you build relationships where balance is not a hope, but the foundation. Matching energy isn't distance. That is dignity. Number 3, reclaim your emotional control. Reclaim your emotional control because in a world buzzing with screens and instant messages, nothing tests a man more than that quiet moment after you hit send and stare at your phone like your whole day depends on a tiny gray bubble. And here is the instruction you need to hear. Your peace is not for sale. Not to a notification. Not to a delay. Not to anyone. Because the second your mood rises when she replies fast and sinks when she takes her time, you have handed over the steering wheel of your life. And that is the trap. The modern trap. Where a grown man with responsibilities, dreams, and a future lets a glowing screen decide how he feels about himself. And as Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. So realize it now, because her reply is information, not validation. It tells you about her level of interest, not your worth. And when you burn that truth into your mind, you step back into command. You stop acting like every pause is a verdict on your value, and you start acting like a man who knows who he is. A man guided by Old Stoic wisdom that teaches calm in chaos and clarity in noise. And yes, women sense the shift. They always do. They feel the tightness in rushed messages. They hear the hope hiding behind words. And when they sense that your emotional world revolves around their approval, attraction fades. Not from cruelty, but because dependence never looks like confidence. So the order is simple. Take your emotions back. Take your focus back. Take your life back. Because you were not built to sit at a desk pretending to work while refreshing your phone every 2 minutes. You were built to build, to move, to create, to train your body, sharpen your skills, deepen your friendships, and pursue goals that make you proud when you look in the mirror at night. And as Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Meaning stop chasing every signal and start chasing your standards. Because discipline is louder than desperation. And when you redirect your attention to what you can control, your work, your health, your purpose, your growth, something powerful happens. You stand taller. You breathe slower. Your mind clears. And you carry yourself with the quiet certainty of a man who does not beg the world for permission to feel good. And that is the essence of an iron mind. Forged by practice, not talk. Shaped by choosing action over obsession again and again. In the gym. At work. in silence, until your default state is calm strength, not restless waiting. And here is the modern truth. Notifications are designed to hook you, to keep you checking, to keep you reacting. But you are not a puppet. You are a man. And your job is to use the tools of modern life without letting them use you. So put the phone down. Set times to check it. Fill the space with progress. Because progress is the antidote to anxiety. And as Seneca warned, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. So stop suffering over stories you invent in your head about what a delay might mean. Because silence is just silence until you give it a story. And you do not need stories that steal your power. You need habits that build it. Habits rooted in Old Stoic wisdom. Habits that remind you that calm is a choice and self-command is a skill. And when you live this way, you experience what I call a Stoicism win. Not in theory, but in daily life, where you choose response over reaction, direction over distraction, purpose over panic. And make no mistake, this is not about pretending you do not care. It is about caring without losing yourself, about interest without attachment, about respect for her and respect for you at the same time. Because your emotions deserve to be in your hands, not dangling from someone else's timing. And when you hold them steady, you become the man who moves through life grounded, focused, and unshaken. The man who does not chase because he is too busy building. And that energy is felt. It is noticed. It draws people in without a word, because certainty is magnetic. So repeat this to yourself. Her reply is information, not validation. Her reply is information, not validation. Her reply is information, not validation. And let that become the rule you live by. The rule that keeps your head clear when the phone is quiet and your confidence solid when it lights up. And as you practice this, day after day, you will feel the rise of an iron mind again. You will taste another Stoicism win. You will see how Old Stoic wisdom fits perfectly into modern life, teaching you to master your reactions while the world rushes around you. And from that place, you do not just improve your dating life. You master life itself. You move with purpose. You speak with calm. You act with intention. And you carry the quiet victory of a man who knows that true control is not over others. It is over himself. And that is the kind of power that never fades. And if this hit home, drop a comment right now. My peace is in my hands. Let the world know you don't hand your emotions to silence or screens. You lead yourself. Like this video. Subscribe for more sharp, unshakable guidance. And remind yourself every day, her reply is information, not validation. Take control. Take the lead. Start now. Number 4 is simple and powerful. Let absence do the work, because most men think they lose a woman by pulling back, when the real loss usually comes from never pulling back at all. From being always on, always texting, always checking in, always ready like an open door that never closes. And that is the problem, because when you are everywhere, all the time, she never gets the chance to truly feel your presence. And if she cannot feel your presence, she will never feel your absence. And without absence, there is no contrast. And without contrast, there is no value. That is how the human mind works. That is not mystery. That is psychology tricks at play, the same kind that show up in female psychology and in How to Fall in Love. So think about your favorite meal, the one you crave, the one that makes you smile before the first bite. Now imagine eating it every single day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. At first it feels amazing. Then something shifts, not because the food changed, but because the frequency did. The spark fades. The taste dulls. The magic softens. Too much presence kills appreciation. And the same rule applies to attention, effort, and emotional availability. So don't confuse constant access with real connection. Be clear about this. When you flood the space, you drain the mystery. And when mystery is gone, desire struggles to breathe. Now picture a man who sends good morning texts, midday updates, late night check-ins, who explains every move and reassures every silence. He believes he is building closeness. He thinks he is nurturing something real. But what he is really doing is filling every inch of space so she never has room to step forward. No room to wonder. No room to reach back. No room to feel anything except a quiet sense of being full. And full people don't hunger. That is the truth. She does not have time to miss him. She does not have space to crave him. He arrives before she ever notices he was gone. And absence works because it creates clarity. It clears the fog. It shows what is real. So when you stop over-delivering, her true level of interest rises to the surface. And this is where you must be honest with yourself. If she values you, she will move toward you. She will check in. She will initiate. She will step into the space you opened. But if she does not, the silence grows, not because you caused it, but because you finally stopped covering it. That is not a loss. That is information. And information is power. So don't use absence to play games. Don't use it to provoke or to test. Be better than that. Use it to free yourself because you're not threatening anyone with withdrawal. You are simply returning to a healthy baseline where your energy is not poured into someone who is not pouring anything back. You must stop auditioning for attention and start paying attention to effort. That is the shift. That is where self-respect lives. And here is the part most men never expect. When you stop flooding her with attention, she starts to feel the change inside herself. She notices the missing message. She wonders why you are not as available. She feels the gap, not because you punished her, but because you stopped cushioning the imbalance. And that gap invites reflection. It invites curiosity. It invites her to ask, what changed? And sometimes, that question is all it takes to wake real interest. Absence does not push the right woman away. It reveals her. It shows you whether she wants to meet you in the middle or whether she was simply comfortable with you doing all the work. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. And clarity saves time, saves energy, saves heart. So don't be the man who believes love is built by endless giving while receiving nothing. Be the man who understands balance, because that is how to fall in love in a way that lasts. That is how to fall in love without losing yourself. And yes, this taps into psychology tricks, into female psychology, not as manipulation, but as understanding how humans respond to space, contrast, and value. You must remember this line. She cannot miss what never leaves. Read it again. She cannot miss what never leaves. So give her something to miss. Not by disappearing, not by being cold, but by having a life, by having purpose, by choosing when to give your time instead of spilling it everywhere. Don't chase with noise. Attract with presence. Don't crowd the moment. Create room for it. Be steady. Be calm. Be clear. That is strength without force. That is confidence without shouting. And in that quiet space, in that pause you allow, the right woman will feel you more than she ever did when you were always there. And if she steps forward, you'll know it's real. And if she doesn't, you'll know you're free. And either way, you win. Number 5, test her interest. There's a special kind of confusion that traps a lot of men, the kind that keeps you stuck between hope and doubt, when she never initiates, but she always responds. Not with excitement, not with real effort, but just enough to keep you guessing, just enough to keep you thinking maybe there's something there. And because she never fully disappears, you tell yourself the story you want to hear. So you keep carrying the momentum, you keep being the one who reaches out first, who keeps the conversation alive, who makes the plans, who fills the silence. And all the while, you're left wondering whether she's interested or just entertained, and that is where clarity becomes essential. Because when someone gives mixed signals, the worst thing you can do is keep filling the gaps for them. Don't do that. Be still. Because as long as you compensate for her low effort, you will never see her real level of investment. She doesn't need to show it. She doesn't need to try. You've made the connection too easy to coast on, and that is not connection, that is convenience. Picture this man who sends the same good morning text every single day, like clockwork, like it's part of her routine. Some days she answers. Some days she doesn't. Some days she replies hours later with a short, emotionless message. And yet he keeps doing it day after day because he's afraid that if he stops, she'll drift away. And what he doesn't realize is this simple truth. If something fades the moment you stop carrying it, it was never real to begin with. Let that line sink in, because that is not harsh, that is honest, and honesty is what sets you free. Testing her interest doesn't mean playing games or trying to twist the situation. Don't do that. Be better. It means creating a clean opportunity for her to show up. It means removing yourself just enough so you can finally see what happens when you are not doing all the work. So stop being the first to text. Stop being the one who always follows up. Stop being the only person pouring energy into the connection. Step back. Not dramatically, not with attitude, but with intention. That is the key. Intention. Then observe. Don't react. Just watch. Does she close the distance? Does she notice the shift? Does she reach out, check on you, ask to see you? Or does she let the silence sit there comfortably like it doesn't cost her anything at all? Because her response to space will tell you more than 1,000 polite replies ever could. The beauty of this approach is that it exposes the truth without a single confrontation. No speeches. No pressure. No emotional talks that go nowhere. Her actions will answer the question you keep avoiding. If she cares, she'll show it. If she doesn't, she'll stay quiet. And that silence is your clarity, not your failure. You're not losing her. You're losing the illusion that she's invested. And that is a win, even if it doesn't feel like it at first. If the connection only exists when you carry it, you're not in a relationship, you're in a routine. And routines don't build bonds. Effort does. Balance does. Mutual curiosity does. Let her actions reveal what her words never will, because words are easy. Effort is not. You must understand this if you want to become a high-value man, not in the sense of status or image, but in the sense of self-respect. A man who doesn't beg for interest, who doesn't chase mixed signals, who doesn't build dreams on silence. That is a high-value man. And women feel that, not because you announce it, but because you live it. Be calm. Be grounded. That is masculine energy. Not noise. Not pressure. But quiet certainty, the kind that says, I know what I bring, and I won't carry what won't carry me back. When you step back, you're not trying to scare her into action. Don't think that way. You're simply giving reality a chance to breathe, and reality always tells the truth. This is how you attract women who are actually interested, not just passing time. Because when you stop overinvesting, you stop teaching people that your time is cheap, and you start showing that your presence is earned. Don't confuse effort with pressure. Be steady instead. That steadiness is masculine energy in action, and it changes how you show up in every part of your life. Remember, a high-value man doesn't chase attention. He notices it. And when it's not there, he doesn't argue with the silence. He listens to it. So test her interest, not to control the outcome, but to see it clearly, because clarity saves you months, sometimes years of wondering. You must be willing to face the answer, whatever it is, because the right woman won't be confused by your space. She'll step into it. And the wrong situation will fade when you stop carrying it, just like the quote says. And when that happens, don't take it as a loss. Take it as direction. Be the man who chooses direction over doubt. Be the man who learns how to attract women by being aligned, not by being available on demand. That is how you grow. That is how you protect your energy. That is how you move closer to the life and the connection that actually meets you halfway. If you made it this far, you already know the truth. Clarity beats confusion every time. Don't keep carrying what won't carry you back. Step back with intention. Let her actions speak. And choose respect over guessing. If you're ready to stop filling the gaps and start seeing what's real, comment this below to lock it in. I choose clarity. I stop carrying what won't carry me back. Number 6, raise your standards. Raise your standards, because this is the moment where your life turns. And I'm telling you straight, when she never texts first, never calls first, never shows real initiative, the problem is not her silence, it's the level of treatment you've decided to accept. And as Old Stoic wisdom reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events, Marcus Aurelius said. So take that power back now and build an iron mind. Because staying attached to someone who gives little is not love. It's fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear that this is the best you can get. And fear is a terrible advisor. It teaches you to accept crumbs and call them connection. But hear this clearly. Crumbs are not a meal. And hope without action is just delay. So stop protecting your hope and start protecting your self-respect, because a man without standards becomes a man without options. And that is not a theory, that is reality. You see it every day in modern life, where messages travel in seconds and attention is everywhere, yet effort still tells the truth. And Seneca said it best: "He who is brave is free, free from chasing silence, free from waiting by the phone, free from shrinking his world to fit someone else's indifference." So be brave now. Be free now. Choose standards now. Because every time you tolerate neglect, you train your mind to believe that this is all you deserve. And your world gets smaller, your confidence gets quieter, your energy gets drained, until her bare minimum feels like a privilege. And that is how good men lose themselves without even noticing. So draw the line today, not with anger, not with speeches, but with calm action. Because raising your standards is not about being harsh, it's about being honest. Honest that a real connection meets you halfway. Honest that if you are the only one planning, initiating, and caring, then you are carrying something that should be shared. Honest that peace matters more than fantasy. And peace is power in a world that never slows down. And when you choose peace, you start building that iron mind again, the kind that doesn't panic when the phone is quiet, the kind that understands that silence is information, not a threat. And here is the instruction: match her energy, not to punish, but to see clearly. Because absence creates clarity, and clarity gives you strength. And Epictetus taught us: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. So decide to be a man with standards, then live like one. No drama, no chasing, no over-explaining, just steady, grounded action. Because the right woman does not need to be convinced to care. She shows it naturally, consistently, willingly. She doesn't make you guess. She doesn't leave you hanging. She brings reciprocity because she sees your value without being pushed. And that is what you make space for when you stop holding on to what gives you nothing back. And understand this deeply: your worth is not measured by how long you can hold on to someone. It's measured by how ready you are to walk away when respect is missing. Because walking away is not losing, it is choosing yourself. And when you choose yourself, you step into Stoicism win, the quiet victory of mastering your reactions, your expectations, your choices. And in modern life, that mastery shows up everywhere. In your work, where you stop chasing approval and start delivering excellence. In your health, where you train with discipline instead of excuses. In your friendships, where you choose people who show up. And in your love life, where you no longer audition for attention. And Theodore Roosevelt said, "In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing, so make the right decision now." Raise your standards. Because standards are not walls, they are filters. They decide who gets access to your time, your energy, your presence. And when you raise them, something powerful happens. The wrong women fall away, and that is not a loss. That is relief. That is space. That is freedom. And the right ones step forward with ease, not because you chased, but because you stood firm. And this is where Old Stoic wisdom becomes real-life practice, where Stoicism win is no longer a concept, but a way you live, day after day, choice after choice. And here is the shift that changes everything. Her silence no longer shakes you, it informs you. It tells you exactly where she stands so you can decide where you stand. You stop trying to fix what isn't broken. You stop forcing what was never mutual. You stop clinging to potential and start choosing reality. And reality is where strong men are built, because reality doesn't lie. And when you live in reality, you don't beg for space, you don't wait for crumbs, you don't tie your identity to someone who barely shows up. You show up for yourself first. And that self-respect changes how you walk, how you speak, how you decide, and how others respond to you. Because value is not something you chase, it is something you embody. And embodying it requires an iron mind, trained to stay calm when emotions rise, trained to stay steady when uncertainty appears, trained to choose long-term respect over short-term comfort. And yes, it takes discipline. But discipline is the price of freedom. And freedom is what you're really after. Freedom from doubt, freedom from waiting, freedom from shrinking your life to fit someone else's limits. So remember this instruction and repeat it until it becomes part of you. Raise your standards, protect your peace, match energy, walk away when respect is missing, Choose clarity over confusion. Choose self-respect over fear. Because the point of all this is not to win her back, it is to win yourself back. And that is the greatest victory any man can achieve, the victory of knowing his worth and living like it every day, in every situation, until one day you realize you no longer chase attention, you attract respect. And that is when you know you have built the iron mind, you have honored old Stoic wisdom, you are living Stoicism win, and you are finally mastering your life. Hey, my friend, thanks for sticking with me till the end. If what you heard today made you pause even for a second, that's a good thing. That pause is growth. That pause is awareness. And that awareness is the first step toward becoming the man you're meant to be. Remember this. Don't chase attention, build value. Focus on your purpose, respect yourself, and let your actions speak louder than words. When you stay grounded, confident, and intentional, the right people will feel it without you forcing anything. If you want to keep walking this path, hit subscribe so you don't miss the principles that will help you grow stronger in every connection you build. And if you've ever dealt with a woman who never reached out first, share your story in the comments. You're not alone, and your experience might help someone else.